Hello everyone! Welcome to our discussion.
Did you know about the sections in CMTA book? Well, I give you a simplified discussions about this. Let's start it. So let's go first in chapter 2, which is customs warehouses. So when we say warehouses, it is a place where goods are stored, whether it is for exportation or for importation. So now let's go to the sections. So in section 801, establishment and supervision of customs bonded warehouses. So in this section, when the business of the port requires such facilities, the district collector, subject to the approval of the commissioner, shall designate and establish warehouses for use as public and private bonded warehouses, yards, or for other special purposes. So, warehouses and premises shall be subject to the supervision of the district collector, who shall impose such conditions as may be deemed necessary for the protection of the revenue and the goods stored herein. So in this exercise of the district collector's supervisory functions herein and in the Bureau's implementation of this chapter, so there are existing contracts of private operators with appropriate government agency or regulator, such as but not limited to the Philippine Ports Authority or PPA, Subic Bay Metropolitan Authority or SBMA, and Pivedic Industrial Authority or PIA, and their respective authorities and powers granted by law pertinent to such contracts shall not be impaired or adversely affected. There are following conditions of goods manufactured in whole or in part of imported materials and intended for exportation may be made and manufactured in abandoned manufacturing warehouse. So first is the manufacturer shall file sufficient security for the faithful observance of laws, rules, and regulations applicable thereto. Then the second is the application for the establishment of bonded warehouses may be made in writing and filed with a customs officer, describing the premises, the location, and the capacity of the same, and the purpose for which the building is to be used, pursuant to this Section 804 of this Act. So third is, from the receipt of the application, the customs officer shall examine the premises, evaluate its location, construction, and means provided for the safekeeping of the goods. Fourth is, the customs officer may authorize the establishment of the customs bonded warehouse and accept a bond for its operation and maintenance if the applicant was compliant with the prescribed requirements. And lastly, the operator of the bonded warehouse shall pay an annual supervision fee in an amount to be fixed by the commissioner. So let's go to section 802. Types of customs bonded warehouses or CBWS. Customs bonded warehouses either classified as manufacturing or non-manufacturing. So when we say manufacturing customs bonded warehouse, it is a warehouse facility established for the manufacture of products utilizing raw materials or components that are imported, duty and tax-free conditioned on the exportation of the finished products within the period prescribed herein or withdrawal for domestic consumption upon payment of duties and taxes. So when we say non-manufacturing customs bonded warehouse, it is a facility where goods are stored, duty and tax-free conditioned on the eventual withdrawal of the goods for consumption or for export or for transit or for any other clearance reaching with the period prescribed herein. So there are following types of manufacturing customs bonded warehouse. First is miscellaneous customs bonded warehouse. It is a warehouse facility licensed by the BOC to import, receive, and store raw materials, accessories, and packing materials, except garments and textile, for manufacture into finished products for export. Second is customs common bonded warehouse. It is a warehouse facility licensed by the BOC alone or jointly with GTIS for garments industry to import, receive and store raw materials, accessories, spare parts, supplies and packing materials for the account of its accredited members for manufacture into finished products for export. Third is Industry Bonded Warehouse. It is a warehouse facility duly licensed by the BOC to import under band and under its name and account raw materials, except fibers, yarns, fabrics, and accessories for the manufacture of garments, for storage and subsequent sale or transfer to the following, which this shall be manufactured into export products. So first is licensed client or end user, customs bonded manufacturing warehouse, or PISA or Freeport Locator. So let's go to non-manufacturing. So non-manufacturing customs bonded warehouse includes public bonded warehouse, private bonded warehouse, or other customs facilities. So when we say public bonded warehouse, it is a warehouse facility licensed by the BOC to receive and store general cargoes for exportation, transfer to another customs bonded warehouse, PISA or a Freeport registered enterprise, or for local consumption in the same state where the cargoes were imported. Articles for local consumption shall only be withdrawn upon payment of the assessed duties and taxes and other charges due thereon. So when we say private bonded warehouse, it is a warehouse facility licensed by the BOC to import, receive, and store articles for its production, intended for domestic consumption, withdrawal of which shall be made only upon payment of duties and taxes and other charges due thereon. And under the other customs facilities, we have here two: airline customs bonded warehouse or airlines catering customs bonded warehouse, and multinational regional bonded warehouse. So when we say airline customs bonded warehouse or airlines catering customs bonded warehouse, it is a special type of customs bonded warehouse which stores supplies, spare parts, in-flight duty-free items, and such other goods necessary for the reasonable requirements of the aircraft, its crew, and passengers. Multinational regional bonded warehouse. It is a warehouse facility licensed by BOI in proper cases to serve as supply depot for the storage, deposit, safekeeping of spare parts components, semi-finished products and raw materials including packing, covering, putting up, marking, labeling, cutting or alter to customer satisfaction, mounting, and or packaging into kits for marketable lots thereof, to fill up transactions and sales made by its officer or parent companies, and to serving as a storage of goods purchased locally by the home office of the multinational for export abroad under the supervision of the BOC. Let's go to Section 803, Types of Customs Facilities and Warehouses, or CFWS. So CFWS shall include container yard, container freight station, seaport warehouses, and airport warehouses. So let's go first with container yard. Container yard is a designated area in a container terminal, usually adjacent to the marshalling yard, where containers and chassis are received, stacked, and dispatched. A container yard, also known as CY, is a designated storage area for containers in a port. A CY is used for aligning containers, for loading on a ship, and for storing offloaded containers till they are shifted to rail yard, CFS, or delivered to consignee. Second is container freight. So container freight, a warehouse or transit shed adjacent to the container yard used for stuffing and stripping of container cargo. A CFS is a warehouse that specializes in the consolidation and deconsolidation of cargo. An LCL, or less than container load shipment, will be taken to a CFS at the origin to be consolidated into a container with other cargo. Primary purpose of a CFS is to allow the benefits of containerization to be realized in the inland transport leg of international cargo movement. This will provide hassle-free and single-window clearance service to importers or exporters, which ensures quality and returns that is worth every penny. Next is seaport warehouses. It is near the designated seaport and used for storing goods that is coming and going via sea. The operation of container seaport include 4 steps. So first step is ship to shore, stage when cargo is discharged. Next is transfer. Cargo is unloaded to a temporal area. Next is storage, stage where containers are held for a longer period of time. Next is delivery and receipt. It's the movement of delivery of cargo or receiving into the terminal. The last one is storage and warehousing of merchandise on land and stevedoring to and from vessels. The next is airport warehouses. So airport warehouse is used for storing goods that is for importation and exportation via air. So this section subject to consultation with the NIDA and the DTI and based on prevailing economic circumstances, the Secretary of Finance may, upon the recommendation of the Commissioner, create or dissolve certain types of warehouses. Section 804. Application for operation of a customs warehouse. So in this section, application for the establishment of customs bonded warehouse and customs facility warehouse shall be filed with the district collector where the CBW or CFW is located, describing the premises, location, capacity, and purpose thereof. Upon the receipt of such application, the district collector shall examine the premises of such proposed warehouse, particularly its location, construction, and storage facilities. The district collector, with the approval of the commissioner, may authorize the establishment of customs warehouses and accept the required security for its operation and maintenance. The operator of such CBW and CFW shall pay an annual supervision fee as determined by the Commissioner. Section 805. Responsibility of operators. In this section, the operator of a customs bonded warehouse or custom facility warehouse shall comply with the customs requirements on establishment, security, suitability, and management, including stock keeping and accounting of goods of the CBW or CFW. Upon lawful demand, the operator of a CBW or CFW shall allow authorized representatives of the Bureau access to the premises at a reasonable time to all documents, books, and records of accounts pertaining to the operation of the CBW or CFW. So, in case of loss of goods stored in CBW or CFW due to operator's gross negligence or willful misconduct, so the operator shall be liable for the payment of duties and taxes due thereof. The government assumes no legal responsibility over the safekeeping of goods stored in any customs warehouse, yard, or premises. Section 806. Customs control over CBWs and CFWs. So in this section, the Bureau shall, for customs premises, exercise control over, direct and manage CBWs and CFWs pursuant to Section 303 of this Act, and likewise over the goods thereat pursuant to Section 301 of this Act, provided that the Bureau shall not be liable for any loss or damage of the goods stored for safekeeping in CBW, CFW, yard, or premises. Section 807. Discontinuance of customs bonded warehouse and customs facility warehouse. So in this section, The use of any CBW and CFW may be discontinued by the district collector when conditions so warrant, or upon receipt of a written request from the operator thereof, provided that all the requirements of the laws and regulations have been complied with the said operator. Discontinuance of the use of any warehouse shall be effective upon approval thereof by the district collector, who shall, within 10 days, inform the commissioner of such action in writing. So a CBW or CFW may be discontinued or its operation closed by the district collector in two ways. The first way is when the conditions so warrant, such as when the business of the port no longer requires the existence or operation of the CBW or CFW, or when the operator expressly requests in writing. Section 808. Warehousing security on goods stored in customs-bonded warehouses. So, for goods declared in the entry for warehousing in CBW, the district collector shall require the importer to post a sufficient security equivalent to the computed duties, taxes, and other charges, conditioned upon the withdrawal of the goods within the period prescribed by Section 811 of this Act, or the payment of duties, taxes, and other charges, and compliance with all importation requirements. So in this section, in order to protect government revenues, the importer who places his goods in a warehouse is required to post a sufficient security, usually a band, equal to 100% of the duties, taxes, and other charges of the goods to withdraw the same within the period prescribed by Section 811. So in case the importer fails to withdraw the goods, he is liable to pay the duties, taxes, and other charges due to the importation and comply with the requirements provided by customs laws. Section 809. Withdrawal of goods from customs bonded warehouse or CBW. So, imported goods shall be withdrawn from the CBWs when the necessary withdrawal permit has been filed, together with any related document required by any provision of this Act and other regulations. Goods entered under sufficient security as provided in Section 1507 of this Act may be withdrawn at any time for consumption, transit, or exportation. The withdrawal must be made by the CBW operator or its duly authorized representative. So, in withdrawal of goods from customs bonded warehouse, we must obtain clearance. So, next is Section 810. Release of goods from CFW or container freight warehouse. So, in this section, imported goods shall be released when the goods declaration is electronically lodged, together with any related document required by any provision of this Act and other regulations. All goods entered into the CFW shall be subject to the filing of a goods declaration within a period specified under Section 407 of this Act. So the goods will be released if the goods declaration is already electronically lodged. So that was in Section 810. So let's go to Section 811. Period of storage in customs bonded warehouse. So when we say storage, it is the time that the goods stay in the warehouse. So generally, period for the storage of goods entered for warehousing is 1 year. However, for perishable goods, the CMTA provides for a period of 3 months, extendable for another 3 months, a total of 6 months, based on valid reasons and upon written request. So, the goods whose processing into finished products for export requires a period longer than 1 year, based on industry standard and practice, may be allowed to be stored and manufactured into finished products for more than 1 year. In this case, the Commissioner is required to issue the implementing rules and regulations. So, with a consultation with the Secretary of Trade and Industry and with the approval of the Secretary of Finance. So let's go to section 812, exemption from duty of goods in customs bonded warehouse. So in this section, goods duly entered for warehousing in customs bonded warehouse shall be exempt from duty and tax within the allowed period for storage unless withdrawn for consumption, exportation, or transit to a free zone or another CBW, in which case shall withdrawal will be subject to the applicable rules and regulations on the liquidation of the warehousing entry. Section 813. Records to be kept by customs bonded warehouse operators. So in this section, an account shall be kept by the Bureau of all goods delivered to the customs bonded warehouse, and a report shall be made by the customs bonded warehouse operator containing a detailed statement of all imported goods entered and withdrawn from the customs bonded warehouse. The Bureau shall specify the format of the report and may require electronic submission. So, all documents, books, and records of accounts concerning the operation of any customs bonded warehouse shall, upon demand, be made available to the district collector or the representative of the district collector for examination or audit. For record purposes, all documents shall be kept for 3 years. So let's proceed to chapter 3, which is free zones. And section 814 is under in this chapter. So section 814, it is when goods are admitted and withdrawn. So when we say admitted, imported goods shall be admitted into a free zone when the goods declaration, together with required documents as required by existing laws and regulations, are electronically lodged with the Bureau and other relevant government authorities at the time of admission. So imported goods shall be withdrawn from the free zone for entry to the customs territory when the goods declaration is electronically lodged, together with the required documents at the time of the withdrawal from the free zone. So let's go to Title 4, which is Customs, Transit, and Transshipment. So let's go first with Chapter 1, which is Customs Transit. So in Section 600, this is Customs Transit in the Customs Territory. So when we say Customs Transit, it is a customs procedure used to move goods between 2 points of customs territory via another customs territory or between 2 or more different customs territories. So, in customs transit within the customs territory shall be allowed for goods except those intended for consumption and to be transported as follows. So first is from port of entry to another port of entry as exit point for outright exportation. Second is from port of entry to another port of entry or inland customs office. Third is from inland customs office to a port of entry as exit point for outright exportation. And last, from one port of entry or inland customs office to another port of entry or inland customs office. So those are the 4 that is allowed in transporting goods. So let's go to section 601, which is duty and tax on goods intended for transit. So in this section, transit goods admitted for storage in a customs bonded warehouse or for outright exportation at the port of destination or inland customs office. So the goods intended for transit covered by the Republic Act number 10668, or this is otherwise known as an act allowing foreign vessels to transport and co-load foreign cargoes for domestic transshipment and for other purposes. So let's go to section 602, which is carrier security. So here in this section, carriers that transport imported goods that shall be placed under customs transit from a port of entry to other ports. So let's go to section 603, which is customs transshipment. So when we say transshipment, it is the act of offloading a container from one ship, generally at a hub port, and loading it onto another ship to be further carried to the final port of discharge. Section 604, goods entered for immediate re-exportation. So, in re-exportation of goods, it should be need to show the bill of lading, invoice, manifest, or other satisfactory evidence. So, upon the re-exportation of the goods and the production of the proof of landing beyond the limits of the Philippines, the security shall be released. Section 1400, misdeclaration, misclassification, undervaluation in goods declaration. So in this section, when there is misdeclaration to a quantity, quality, description, weight, or measurement of the goods, or misclassification through insufficient or wrong description of the goods, or use of wrong tariff heading resulting to a discrepancy in the duty and tax to be paid between what is legally determined upon assessment and what is declared, shall be subject to a surcharge equivalent to 250% of the duty and tax due. Section 1401, unlawful importation or exportation. So in this section, if there is any person who commit technical smuggling as defined in this act, shall be penalized. Section 1423, removing or repacking goods in warehouse. So, in this section, if there is any person who fraudulently conceals, removes, or repacks merchandise in any warehouse, or fraudulently alters, defaces, or obliterates any mark or numbers placed upon packages deposited in such warehouse, he shall be punished with the penalties prescribed in section 1418 thereof. Section 1424, removing goods from customs custody. So in this section, any person who enters any warehouse or any vehicle loaded with or containing merchandise with intent to unlawfully remove therefrom, he or she shall suffer the penalties provided in section 1401 thereof. Section 1430, violation of this act and rules and regulations in general. So here in this section, any person who violates any other provision of this act or the rules and regulations issued pursuant thereto shall be penalized with imprisonment of not less than 30 days and 1 day but not more than 1 year, or be liable for a fine of not less than 100,000 pesos but not more than 300,000 pesos. So, if the offender is a foreigner, the offender shall be deported after serving the sentence. So, if the offender is a public officer or employee, the offender shall be disqualified from holding public office, from the exercising the right to vote, and to participate in any public election for 10 years. Section 1431, statutory offices of officers and employees. So, in this section, every officer, agent, or employee of the Bureau of any other agency of the government shall charged with the enforcement of the provisions of this act, who shall be found guilty or any delinquency as described below, shall be penalized with a imprisonment of not less than 6 years and 1 day, but not more than 12 years, and perpetual disqualification to hold public office. Section 1432, failure to report fraud. So in this section, any employee of the Bureau who has knowledge of any fraud and who fails to report all information related thereto to the district collector shall be penalized with imprisonment of not less than 6 years and 1 day, but not more than 12 years, and fine, but not less than 500,000 pesos, but not more than 1 million pesos. Section 1506, General Security. So in this section, any cases where securities are required to be given under the provisions of this act and related customs laws, the district collector, instead of requiring separate special security where transactions of a particular party are numerous, may accept general security extending over such period of time and covering such transactions of the party in question as may be satisfactory to the district collector. Section 1507, Security. So in this section, the Bureau shall prescribe the forms and amount of security required to guarantee the payment of duties and taxes and other obligations provided in this Act. Section 1512, Reward to persons instrumental in the actual collection of additional revenues arising from the discovery of violations of this Act. So in this section, a cash reward equivalent to 20% of the actual proceeds from the sale of smuggled goods and confiscated goods or actual collection of additional revenues shall be given to the customs and non-customs informers or whistleblowers who are instrumental in the collection of additional revenues arising from the discovery of violations of this Act, in accordance with the rules and regulations to be issued by the Secretary of Finance.